Thank you so much for joining. As you can see here, I have two rackets of sports that one I've only been playing for just over a year, although you could say I've really only been playing for like about I would say 9 months is about 10 months is where it was. So it was just late last year when I kind of really started to get into it. I mean, we had played, but definitely did not play regularly. Um, and then, of course, tennis. This is the game I grew up on. I was actually just a little bit about my tennis background. Um, I was a late bloomer. I was a soccer player in up through about sophomore, junior year in high school, and I had always had been pretty hand-eye coordinated and enjoyed racket sports. Really missed out on getting into tennis at a younger age, but again, soccer took over. It was kind of the more popular sport. But I took up tennis, and even though I was really behind a lot of folks very quickly, I was able to catch up fairly quickly and started to do tournaments even as a junior in tennis, and so I just, of course, loved it. I walked on in college. I played just a little bit. I never really got very good in high school. I'd say I just kind of became average, maybe like a 3-5 tennis player. But then in college, it was a lot of fun. I played like 3 hours a day. I would say I was probably a 4.0 plus in tennis terms, maybe almost to a 4.5 level, probably just below. I don't know if I've ever really been a true 4.5 at any point in my life. And I actually got pretty good. I didn't end up traveling with the team or playing any competitive college tennis, but I certainly had was doing some play-on matches for the team and beat some people too. I was pretty good. If anybody was a weaker opponent, I definitely would get you. I had full complement of really everything. Could hit every shot, and was it was a lot of fun playing 3 or 4 hours a day. Then I kind of went through a dark period in my tennis game, and took it back up as I was back in the work field or work in the adulting. Here we go, adultish. Had a job, and so then I joined a club and got back into it. And I played on a team that sometimes it was considered a 3-5 to 4-0 team, and then some leagues, depending on the rating scale, they would put you in the 4-0, which was technically the 3-5 to 4-0. So they would put you on the 4-0 team. And actually, I played a lot of doubles because they had generally what happens is that there's the veteran players that have been playing for a long time and are super consistent, but are not like next level players in the 3-5 world. They tend to be that number one, number two, number three. I think it's three singles that you get to do, and then there's um, I think four doubles teams or something like along those lines. I did get to play singles a couple times, and I didn't win necessarily. A lot of it's just because I didn't have those years of experience, but I really started to get pretty good at doubles, and it was a lot of fun playing. Now, I also then, after many years, tennis got really expensive, and when you're having a family, very difficult to maintain, a couple $100 a month in the tennis. So that really kind of faded to more social, like volleyball and kickball and softball and those types of more social, family-oriented sports. I only played sparingly, maybe once or twice a year. Then the pandemic hit, and a friend in the neighborhood was wanted to play. So I started playing tennis 2 years ago, once a week, and that was just it's been great. In fact, I'm playing tomorrow, even though I've been getting into a sport that I'll get into in a second. Um, but we also last year during the pandemic we got a net, and actually we started drawing chalk lines and just playing for fun. We made up our own little tournaments, and we just had so much fun. The interesting thing was that my brother-in-law, Brian, had been playing for a while. I don't know how, at least a few years, if not longer. and was like, "You should play. You should play. You're a tennis player. You should try this thing called pickleball." And I'm like, "Ah, pickleball, what the heck?" I had never really seen it or taken it seriously at all. And after playing one of these just like street tournaments, and well, one time I lost, of course, and then the second time we won, um, was it's so crazy how much fun it was. We were terrible, probably 2-5 to 3-0 level. Definitely didn't know what we were doing. We were just kind of hitting the ball at each other and dinking it and trying to like be really cute with our spins and stuff like that. Definitely didn't have this paddle, which we will get to in a moment. It was just the game itself was like unlike anything I've really seen. It was like this isn't badminton, this isn't tennis, this isn't racquetball, but it kind of in table tennis, but it kind of feels like a mixture of all of this. And the really cool thing is that the rules of pickleball and why I really recommend it is that it levels the playing field to an extent. So, in other words, in tennis, the biggest piece, um, and it is an enjoyment of mine. One of the things I really got, I would say, pretty proficient at was the return game. That is one of the most important things. And I modeled my game off of a lot of players like Stefan Edberg and Andre Agassi. I would say Agassi from a return standpoint. Um, Edberg was a favorite of mine, and kind of I love the mental aspect of Jimmy Connor and like McEnroe, and then the hard workmanship of Jim Courier, the serve and volley beauty game, power game of Stefan Edberg. In fact, I had the Stefan Edberg Classic Wilson racket for a long time, just because it was Stefan Edberg. I think I had a head racket just because of Andre Agassi at one point. Eventually, not right now. It just so happened is that I'm Prince right now. I was Wilson for a long time, and then now I have Prince on the pickleball side. It's just crazy how this all works. I'm very Prince heavy. I should probably go and get sponsored by Prince. No, they probably don't care. Uh, but that said, the thing about tennis is that the racket, again, it's so much heavier. There's so much more length to it. There's a lot more of a shoulder turn motion. I mean, there are some similarities here, but it's definitely a little bit more base. Where this is a little bit more, I would say, like it through the shoulder turn, and you really have that whipping motion, and you don't really need the whipping motion here. So there's just like a crazy amount of spin. There's a lot of flexibility on the strings and then the actual racket itself. And it really, I would say the thing about tennis is even the tennis ball is a lot heavier, so it is really hard on you hear, that's why they call it tennis elbow. I have a lot of, will sometimes have some wrist problems if I get too wristy, so I have to be really careful. A lot of people, when you're serving, you're probably, again, if you're not doing this on a regular basis and really training yourself, sometimes you kind of get out of your proper technique and then you start to, wrench your back, you hurt your shoulder, and it's just like nonstop injuries in the tennis world. The other piece is that if you get one person that's slightly better and just has such a good forehand or a super good backhand or a huge serve, it's pretty much end of story, and it's really difficult to play those players. And it's really difficult, really, in any sport, to kind of tone your level down without like, it just you kind of take the wind out of your sails in terms of having fun. So, I that's the hard part about playing tennis. I think to just maintain your game, you need to play at least once to twice a week for tennis to kind of get back into it, and it's just really difficult to do that with any sport. And actually, that'll be maybe like uh, another segment on my pickleball journey is that in this I loved to just practice tennis. So I almost consider myself more of a practice player than a match player. Um, I just love drilling. playing games, the king of the court stuff and suicide drills and all of the different like American drills and all those different the drilling aspect of it. It's a great workout. It's a lot of fun, and there's not the pressure of the match. You're not really thinking. You're just kind of really working and honing your craft. I think by doing that over years and years and years, you really, you kind of look the part if you do a match player, and so you can definitely tell those who have not drilled versus yourself. I think that's the other thing in tennis is that with myself, I had been a drill level player and with many years of experience. So unless somebody's just ridiculously talented out of the gate, it's kind of hard to play with somebody. But I have really enjoyed getting back into tennis. It's really a blast, and I'll probably continue to play it with it at some level. The only downside to tennis as well is that the strings do break, and I don't know if I've tried to reduce the tension a little bit, maybe see if that helps. But that's tennis. You will need balls. They're not really that expensive per can, but I definitely go through at least I would say like a can a month, something like that. Plus, I seem to break strings about twice a year, and it's getting harder and harder to find. There's almost no competition, so it's over $30 to at least in this area to get strings strung. And so it does get expensive even when you're playing for free. Feels like it's about an $80. And I just have one racket. Normally you really need to have two because if you break strings in the middle of a match or just in the middle of practice, you need to kind of go to another racket. So I'm kind of hurting in that case. However, the person I'm playing with and myself, I do keep pickleball on hand, so we can switch to pickleball. I kind of wish I would go pickleball full time, and maybe I'll create like a separate video on this. But one of the things I recommend is making sure to get yourself a really good paddle. They do cost as much as a tennis racket. I mean, you can go less expensive on a tennis racket, but I wouldn't do that. If you plan on playing any sport once a week or more on a regular basis, always do the research, get the right equipment because it makes such a huge difference in both the enjoyment and also, having just a good experience and your play level will increase. I will say when I jumped up from the Amazon special racket kit, this has definitely upped my game. I mean, ultimately, it's up to me to not miss and make mistakes and hit it properly. However, just the pop off the ball and when you hit it in the right spot, it definitely pops right off, and you can generate a lot more spin with these types of paddles versus the generic or just like a wood paddle, which is kind of the starter kit in many cases. So that is my tennis and pickleball story. I have been playing. Yeah, I've been introduced to the game about a year and a half ago. I would say I'm at about 9 months of playing on a regular basis, and I'm just loving it. I'm hooked. I'm definitely I would love to get to the point where I can play successfully in a 4.0 format for pickleball. That's a pretty good level. 4.5 and higher, again, just like in tennis, you get some really experienced. I would say that's probably 5 years experience or higher, or just if you're just an ultra talented tennis player and you're moving over and you have like those natural reflexes and really natural ability, and then you've also translated it into the completely different pickleball strategy. That's the 4.5s, and they're just so consistent, so good, and they'll attack you, and they know exactly where to attack, where to defend, and they've got it really. It's just second nature. But I don't know if I'll ever get to that point. Maybe there's age brackets. Maybe when I'm 50, I'm 45 today. I have 5 years. In 5 years I could definitely be a solid 4.0 player without a problem. Definitely need to do some drilling or just a ton of match play with just kind of honing in on certain shots all the time could get me there. So I hope you will like, subscribe, join me on my pickleball and sometimes tennis journey. I'll definitely keep everybody updated on how I'm doing. Again, I'm new, so I'm learning just like you. I'm not really here to kind of teach and tell anybody. Maybe I can just give a few pointers from, positive or negative experiences that I have. I will say there are plenty of websites. There's Pickleball Central for getting equipment. There's pickleballtournaments.com to look up tournaments in your area. I think there's also like a pickleball court finder out there, so I highly recommend that. Not all the courts are out there. Even in my area, there are people that are even building their own private courts, so you never know which pickleball courts are in your area. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you on my next pickleball journey video.